Hello, Stand Up Paddle community. Welcome. It's Thursday. That means we're on SupConnect's channel live, and we are going to Portugal today. Love this format. Have been having so much fun every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And pardon my mistake on the time difference. I think some people thought it was an hour ago who are in Europe, in Portugal. So hopefully you're still up and you're enjoying this live. If you're not, it does get recorded immediately. So please tell friends who missed it. It's on IGTV right away on SupConnect's Instagram, and then it will be saved on two different YouTube channels, both SupConnect's and mine, KT Outside. So thanks again for being here. Today, such an interesting guy, and so excited to be talking to Nick Robinson. Originally, thinks Cape Town, South Africa, I think is his hometown. Lives in southern Portugal, involved in so many different aspects of stand-up paddling. Started a podcast in 2015 that I definitely was listening to back then. Sup store owner. He has been a guide, and he's also done some incredible expeditions himself. And he has an exciting new project, which I'm really excited to talk with him about today. So please remember, we have a follow-up group called SupConnect Live Discussions. I just hit the wrong button, not questions, looking for people. And let's see if I can find him. Nowhere too far. There's the podcast. I believe he's on his podcast Instagram. But please join Facebook. We aren't able to share pictures here, and believe me, this is one where we have some great pictures. It's beautiful where he lives. There he is.
Hey, how you doing, Kristen?
Good. Apologies again about the mistake on the time, but you're a good sport. It's 9 p.m.
No
there.
problem. I do it all the time on podcasts when I'm podcasting around Hawaii and stuff. So yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Understand.
We have this silly daylight savings thing time in the United States. I hear we're getting rid of it where, our time changes, which makes it even more complicated. But lots to talk about. So let's jump right into it. You've been involved in so many different parts of stand-up paddleboarding and probably other water stuff. So let's start with kind of your story. I know you've been in it since at least 2014, but were you a waterman at all before that? You're from South Africa and you live in Portugal.
Yeah, from Cape Town. I remember back in the day when I was 14 years old, my brother said, hey, let's try the surfing thing. So I got into his old blue sort of 8-foot board in a place called Muizenberg in Cape Town, and just got up and rode the white water. I loved it. I just loved the feeling so much. And I carried on, so I surfed a lot. And got a little frustrated with surfing because you can't always. We used to live on Cape Peninsula, so there was surf on the west coast, the east coast, and the southern coast as well. So there were surf conditions all around. We'd drive all around the Cape Peninsula trying to find surf, and generally, you couldn't find it. You had to go back, and it was just a long, drawn-out process. But one thing we did have lots of down in Cape Town was wind. So I thought, well, if I wanted to enjoy wind, I'll start windsurfing. So I started windsurfing. This was back in the 90s. It was quite a big thing then. But yeah, so when I came to Portugal, I kind of didn't do anything for 15 years except sit in front of my computer and work digital marketing. And then I saw this stand-up paddle thing. I thought, oh man, that looks so cool. I've got to give it a whirl. And we just went full into it. I was looking for a break as well, so I just switched my life around completely and just ended up on the beach every day running SUP tours in 2014. So it's quite a crazy change.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. So did you see it? You saw somebody else doing it there in Portugal? Is that what it was just? And were they surfing or just on a casual paddle, recreational?
Well, it was a lot of online. I mean, there was a lot of online coverage of it. And when you sort of get hooked in online, you start seeing the same stuff that you're keen on. So I was just seeing all these people stand up paddling, and a friend of mine had a couple of NSPs, 11-foot long things, and he said, "Hey man, let's go out and I know you've been wanting to try this for a while, so let's go out." So I went out, and it was kind of like a cold autumn day, and I didn't have a wetsuit on, and it was blowy, and I thought, this sucks. No, I didn't want to fall in either. So I didn't fall in, but I was just concerned about falling in, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. But then I thought, I was actually doing a podcast for Algarve podcast, and I wanted to interview this lady who had a stand-up paddle, what do you call it, stand-up paddle touring company as well. So I went to go and interview her, and then she said, "Hey, why don't you come and paddle with me?" I said, "Oh, cool." So we went out and it was on flat water. I had a wetsuit, middle of winter. I just loved it so much. Like just looking down into the water, you see all the fish and the seaweed, and there's so many beautiful places to paddle around here as well. So I just got instantly hooked, and then got some boards from Red Paddle, inflatables. We started off paddling on inflatables, and then because I was starting this touring company, I was aware. I mean, normally you would think you have to paddle for a few years before you go into business, right?
No, not when it's a young sport. I mean, people just jumped in. I mean, there's no option we needed more people in it. It was growing. And so I'm glad you jumped right in. You said you got, I think, a certification from ASI, which is one of the worldwide certifiers. I think they're out of Australia, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know whether. I think they might even be based in the UK. Maybe I don't know. But they're all over the world, right? So there was actually.
Yeah.
You go.
I just didn't know if you saw the comment that somebody actually got started from watching your vlogs. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got started stand-up paddleboarding. So you were just like you saw media, they heard your media. And
yeah, I know that's wonderful that we can do that these days and try and inspire others, even if it's just one. It'd be lovely. But yeah, so we did an ASI course, and there was one, luckily enough, in Portugal. So it was up in Peniche, which is up where the World Surf WSL holds the World Surf Tour, and we went all the way out to Peniche, and there's fantastic surf up there as well. So we did a bit of surfing, did a paddleboarding, and we did this intensive course, which was great fun. It really was amazing, and obviously we learned an incredible amount. And that's what I see today as well. I see so many people, and I thought in the beginning, oh, this is such a simple sport. You just jump on the board and go. But there is so much more to it, as obviously, and regarding water safety and technique, and there's so much to learn. So we learned all that, and then came back down to the Algarve, and basically we just looked at Google Maps, myself and my business partner who's going to start out with me. We just looked, and we thought, wherever we see blue, we're just going to paddle. And obviously, there's the ocean, but we've also got lakes and rivers and all kinds of things. So we just went out solidly for about 2 weeks to try and get to know our backyard from the different perspective, from paddleboarding. And it was amazing. I mean, I've been living here 15 years. I've been here now 20 years. And I thought I knew the Algarve, but I didn't know anything. It was amazing. So as an exploratory vehicle, I love that with stand-up paddling.
Yeah. Well, Portugal's a really amazing country. I mean, it's not huge, but it has all kinds of water. And you have a really strong history, both in the surf side and the kayak canoe side. And you have rivers and lakes and other water. I have not been to the Algarve, but I have been, from central and north, and had some really fun experiences, and there's lots more culture, everything I love about Portugal. So one of the things I don't know if it's through the store, but it sounds like you started one of the biggest events that Portugal held for stand-up paddling.
Well, southern Portugal, because there were quite a few events around at the time. Up in the north, like in Lisbon, and also further north, because they've all got their act together up there in the north. And we here in the Algarve are a little bit more sleepy, as it generally is in Europe and the southern countries. And I thought to myself, well, what can we do? And there was one competition. We just when we were going on that exploration, one of the sections that I really wanted to do was this 32-kilometer paddle from one village on the border of Spain, because our border with Spain in the southern section is formed by the river Guadiana, and there's two villages on there which are 32 kilometers apart. So we thought, I wonder if we can actually make 32 kilometers in one day. We didn't know. I mean, we were so novice, we didn't know we could do that. It was the longest I'd ever paddled. So we did. We paddled all the way. We were exhausted after the end of the day, and then we took a taxi back with our inflatables, which was perfect. So, and then I thought to myself, well, hang on. A lot of other people, and I said, spread the word, because I put something on internet and Facebook, and the guys are like, in Portugal, saying, oh man, that's so cool, we want to come with you next time you do it. And I was like, well, that was a one-off, I'm not going to do it another time. But they persuaded me to take 12 of them down, so we paddled down. Like, I was automatically the guide because I'd done it before. And then everyone loved it so much, we had so much fun, and the number one paddler in Portugal came down at the time. and they were so cool. And I was like, it was really nice to meet these like-minded people. And that's another thing about the sub community that I love. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's so cool. Um, and then the next year it grew. It was about 60 people, and then the year after it was 120, and then 150, and it just went mad. But we eventually, canned it because it was a hell of a lot of work, and we weren't making any money out of it because we don't know how to make money out of it.
That needs to be a whole discussion about because that's happened in a lot of places in the world. As young as we are, we've had events come and go, and I remember somebody saying, "Well, event directors shouldn't make money." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I mean, who's going to stick with something if they're losing money or breaking even, no matter how passionate they are? You can only keep that passion and hard work going for so long, and it's so much work to put these on. So I hope we can find more ways to support great events like it sounds like you had. And it makes me sad that I'll never be able to do it because it's over, but
Well,
I
you
always
never know.
have.
But you're right. It is a difficult thing, and I was thinking about it a lot. What if there was some kind of tuition and some kind of kit that we could all develop come together as event organizers around the world and say, well, this is how you do it. This is how you make the money. These are the sponsors you look for, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and build a kind of network. But I don't know. Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
I don't think it's wishful thinking. And sometimes people are like, oh, but we tried and it didn't work. We're only a decade into this sport. And when you look at some of the things like windsurfing you brought up, 80s, it's kind of started and it was all the rage. And like, for instance, there was some rule in the US. It took them 10 years to change a rule about safety equipment or something, and you look
Mm.
back and you think, oh, they did that. It's like, yeah, but they did that over this long period of time. So I still am one who hopes we can, through things like this and what all the things that you do, can help organize and connect and work together to just make it. We all have so much fun with stand-up paddleboarding, but the different pieces of it being organized, like racing, would make it even more enjoyable and just make things
Mm.
positive. It's a bit crazy right now.
And I think that's the most important thing about it. I remember I interviewed Chase Kosterlitz a
Mm.
while back, and I think I mentioned to you in our podcast, is that um, he mentioned the best way to promote the sport would just be to hold small events, local events, even just take your buddy paddling. So that's what we're trying to do here in the Algarve. We started this thing called the SUP Union. There's no money involved. It's complete volunteers. And we've got about 5 or 6 of us in different regions because the Algarve is a very sort of spread out area. It's a rectangular area and all these towns are dotted across. So it's quite extended. And so we've got people in the west, people in the center, and people in the east who are going to do host weekly paddles just for free, just to try and share the stoke and show people. A lot of people are a bit nervous about paddling as well on their own.
Oh, I love that.
Come,
That's fantastic. So is the Algarve the whole southern section, part of your country when you look at the map? Okay, it's all the way across that border. I mean, the
yeah.
pictures I see, it's just spectacular. Your coastline, you have caves and arches, and what was the number you said? You've toured people through, I forgot
Just
it was.
over 1,000, I reckon, 1,000, maybe 2,000. I don't know. I didn't really count. I should have counted, but it was amazing to really bring people and show them the Algarve because as I said, we were looking along the Algarve and searching for the best spots, and we found this incredible place which has got 15 kilometers of coves and caves and cliffs, and it's all these incredible formations and arches like we've mentioned now. And just bringing people into that environment on a super flat day is just mind-blowing. They just couldn't believe it. They said that a lot of these people have been coming to Portugal for 10 years, from England every year on holiday,
Yeah.
and they said they've never seen anything like it. So that was a beautiful feeling to be able to
Well, I know you
share
have
that
some
with
people
people.
on the from the UK listening. I think nowhere too far just said I need to go there. Somebody said hello at South Shores Paddleboards from New York, and your daughter is online saying, "My dad taught me
Hey,
how to paddle." Izzy,
I
how old is
love that.
Izzy?
She's 13 years old, and we actually did a beach clean the other day, which was so rewarding. It was
Oh,
wonderful.
nice. Oh, that's
Just really,
wonderful.
yeah.
Wow. The good people of stand-up paddleboarding doing cause things, bringing people together. I just love that. So being a guide, I mean, not you started this business it was, but being a guide and being bold enough to go to new places and find, that sounds really cool, the river between Spain and Portugal, kind of led into these expeditions. And I understand the one that you just finished up, you've done before, I guess.
I did, yeah. In 2015, 5 years ago, Yeah, basically how it started was there's this chap is an adventurer from England, and his name is Alistair Humphreys, and he talks about this concept called micro adventures. And I was like, well, what is that? What's micro adventures? So I looked it up, and basically he says you work from 9 to 5, but from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m. is your time off. And what you can do is you can go on a micro adventure. You can take a train out into the middle of nowhere, sleep on a hill, and brush your teeth and come back in the morning ready for work.
I love
And he
that.
started doing it, and a lot of people started doing it. It was really cool. So I thought, hey, I can do that with a paddleboard. So I paddled out to an island because we've got about 5 barrier islands down here in a big coastal wetland. Camped on the island, and then went back to work the next day. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. So I did that a couple of times, and I thought, well, hey, if I could do it one night, maybe I should do it a little bit longer. And I've been quite following all these guys on the internet, like Dave Cornswet from the UK.
Oh yeah.
He paddled down
Say yes.
Mississippi. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, wow, that looks really cool. And he's saying it's so easy, and you just got to start, just go. So I thought, okay, I was a bit nervous, but then I interviewed Spike Reed from the UK, and he's also done massive, big, along with Dave Cordenford, big adventures on stand-up paddle. So I said, hey, Spike, why don't you come with me, and you can show me how it's done. And then we got another buddy of ours, Mauro Engler, who I went on to work with in Algarve Sup. And the three of us went across the Algarve. And as far as we knew, it had never been done before. I think some kayakers had probably done it, but never by stand-up paddle. And yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours about that. But
Oh, it's
I
just
actually,
it's fantastic. I think the conditions you said were better this time?
yeah, the first time we had a bit of a storm, and one guy drowned and died. Not one of us, but on
Oh,
the day before, yeah, and it was quite
wow.
horrendous. Yeah, so we left just after the storm, and everything was fine, but it was a bit hairy. But it was in November, so this time we did it in well, it was in September, and it was amazing. It was just 4 days of absolute glass, and I've never seen the Algarve like that. But it was so easy. We did it in 4 days, whereas the previous time we did it in 7 days.
Yeah.
So
So it looked like there were three of you. I saw that you have Algarve addicts or something like that. Is that kind of your group of buddies that do things like this? Or those just local friends? Or who'd you get this
yeah, I
time to
know.
go with you?
The Algarve Addicts was a group that I set up a while back. We're doing podcasts and doing some content about the Algarve, and kind of canned that now because I don't know, just wasn't working so well. But so what we're focusing on now is SUP FM. But the guys that came with me on the stand on Trans Algarve SUP, we call it, were Chris, a friend of mine, who I'm working with as well, another project, and a mate of mine called Tom, who's got a company who sets up marquees for events, like weddings and things.
Hmm.
And he's been paddleboarding for years, and he's got tons of paddleboarding buddies down in the west of the Algarve. It was fantastic. They all came to cheer us along, and we connected with Dave from Paddle Logger. I think you've interviewed him here on Sup Connect.
Hmm.
He set up this amazing
Absolutely.
track
Yeah.
that really helped to interact and bring people in, because we were doing it for a charity for the sailors, disabled sailors of the Algarve, and we're trying to raise some money to buy them boats so they can carry on sailing. So it was nice to have all these people coming to cheer us on, and they were hooting from the hilltops and the cliffs as we paddled past. And
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes, I love seeing, and that I'm going to try to grab a snapshot of because it shows the whole Algarve and your path on Paddle Logger. That's around someplace. We'll put that in the pictures afterwards in the Facebook group. I think that's
great.
cool to see where you went. Now, I didn't get where you live. You talked about how there's the west, central, and eastern part of the Algarve. Where are you
So I'm kind of just in
residence-wise?
the center, about 30 kilometers north, so it takes about 25 minutes to get to the ocean. But there's the capital of the Algarve is called Faro, so that's where everybody flies into. There's an
Hmm.
airport, and I'm about 30 kilometers north in the hills, away from all the tourism, because there's quite a bit of tourism down here. So
Yeah,
it's nice and quiet up in the hills. But
we're making it more
we-
popular right now because we all want to go. Everyone listening.
yeah, no, it's an amazing place to visit, an incredible place to paddle as well, like you mentioned. Yeah. So, but it's kind of nice because it's yeah, we've got about quite a few options with water around here. So that's fairly close to my house. But obviously would like to be on the water, but you can't have everything.
Yeah. You mentioned a different podcast. So in 2015, when you and Simon from England started that podcast, one of the first ones I remember listening to, Did you had done podcasts before as part of another
Yeah,
job or project?
yeah, I started one called Outdoors in Portugal, and then I started another one
Mm.
called Algarve Addicts. Um, now, and then we did SUP FM, and now we've how do you say that? Resurged it. It's
Relaunched, maybe?
relaunched it about five
Yeah.
years later, thanks to COVID, because Simon got hold of me and said, "Hey, let's do this again." And I do another podcast called Wave Pool Mag, because I'm pretty keen on wave pools,
Ah.
sort of building a wave pool, but I don't like to talk about it too much.
It's not a total secret. So is that up in
No,
Faro? I think that's interesting.
yeah, no, yeah, it's a really exciting project, and it's a big thing, and it keeps me going every day. A lot of work to do. But the wave pool sphere is fascinating from a stand-up paddle perspective because none of the existing wave pools have even let a stand-up paddle in. So I know Kyle Lenny's paddleboarded in Wave Garden up in Spain, but
Yeah.
the current commercial wave pools don't allow you to stand up
Well,
paddle.
there was one really big competition in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, I think. Do you
Yeah,
remember seeing that? That
yeah,
was
that was the ATP
the
World
prince or
Tour.
somebody. Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
they held one. And actually the newest one in California that is this Kelly Slater. I've have had a lot of friends actually go up there and do that. They might not be advertising too much at their stand-up paddlers, but a lot of them are crossover and go up and do it both with and without a paddle. But it's very interesting, I think, because stand-up paddling and wave pool technology are the two things that helped surfing get in the Olympics. And Fernando Aguirre, the head of the ISA, has always been really upfront about that because surfing itself as a subjective sport with scoring, not all countries have coastlines. There are a lot of reasons kind of against it, even though there's lots of pros too. It's exciting. The youth like it, but they needed wave pool technology to have advanced. And that's interesting that you're working on that. I find that fascinating. And stand-up paddleboarding with our racing and surfing brings it into, we can have a race in any conditions, any weather, even if the waves aren't great. So that
What's
gives
stunning
them.
about what was stunning about that Olympic, once the surfing had come into the Olympics, and they said we will not be having the next three Olympics in a pool. That's quite weird, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think somehow they needed that backup technology. We'll see. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers. I do. I look forward to watching shortboarding, and I hope it goes well in Japan. What was supposed to be
Hmm.
this year, next year. So I wish them the best, but it's still all brand new to see how that all works out because Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
the Olympics can't have a 2 week wait period. It has to be now.
That's true.
That will
Absolutely.
be an
Yeah, and I
interesting
think
one to watch.
yeah, and they're making some massive waves right now. I don't know if you've seen surf lakes in Australia, basically where they've got a big plunger and they've plunged it and they've got
Oh
push in.
yeah.
And they've just made the biggest wave in wave pool technology, which is it's a phenomenal thing to see. Yeah, I know it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the waves are just getting more incredible.
Did you happen to ever come to California for a wave pool meeting? I know there's some organization that I ended up going to the meeting because it was in my hometown here, Laguna Beach,
Oh, did you come to
California.
the Surf Park Summit?
I went
Yeah,
to a wave pool event.
that was probably the Surf Park Summit, and that's just happened online now, about last week.
Yep, that's what it was. Yeah, so I've actually attended, even though that's not my thing, but because of the crossover with stand up and how we fit into all of that, I tried to track on all of those things. So I love those early podcasts. I mean, stand up paddling had exponential growth for quite a few years, and you really hit it when things were still going boom. Um, Things have changed in the last 5 years, and some things have come and gone already. Again, I feel like we're so young, and yet we've still had a lot of transitions. Were there, you mentioned, for instance, Chase Kosterlitz, I think is a great example, who got a great organization going and did some really good things, but I believe lives in Costa Rica and runs a SUP camp thing now, but kind of went different directions. Did you have some favorites from those early days of podcasting?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think Dave Cornsway was a great one. He paddleboarded down the Mississippi, and that was 3,000 miles, I think, or kilometers. I'm not sure which one. But it took him a good 3 months. And I thought, how on earth can anyone do something for that long? But so that was an amazing chat. And then there was a guy called Charlie Howden, who sadly he had pancreatic cancer.
Oh,
We interviewed him, and he'd just done a thing in Costa Rica. and he was still undergoing treatment as he went, and then sadly he passed away. But so that was a really tipping point of the
Oh, I
first.
didn't realize. I think I missed that one. He was a younger, wonderful young man. I knew him. Yeah.
How
He
did you know
lived on
him?
the
Yeah,
other coast, but I did
yeah, it was
meet him.
amazing. So,
Yeah. Mm,
and
yeah.
then yeah, we interviewed the CEO of Red Paddle, which is fascinating because from a technological point of view, I think they were just coming in leaps and bounds every single year. There was a new technological improvement. Um, since I've sort of gravitated more towards hard boards, just because I love the performance of it. But when you're running a school, I think having inflatables is great because they just bounce off rocks and they just, you can drive a tractor over those things.
Yeah. I don't know if you realize, but the North America was kind of a late, well, I'll say specific the United States has been
Yeah,
pretty late to the inflatable game. And you still talk to people because it has such a hardboard culture because it came here first to California, Florida, to places that were very surf oriented. So they just couldn't get the concept. But companies we have to thank are ones like Red Paddle Company that really, the R&D that they did year after year to make it into a board that really, if it can go to 20 psi and feel like a rock and, it isn't this, it's not a pool toy. Although
absolutely. And I
unfortunately
think
you can buy those off Amazon directly from China. There's still some stuff out there which I go, oh, I hope they still have a good experience.
I'm just looking at my boards over here and I just bought one of those. But actually, I don't know if it was, I just wanted to actually, because of that whole issue about the Chinese plastic paddle boards or PVCs, I thought I'd go to Decathlon. I don't know if you have that in the States, but it's like REI, one of those big places. And there's a company called Itiwit that make paddle boards for them. Have you heard of that?
I have just heard of them, and yes. In fact, they're sponsoring a top racer in France, or
Oh,
she's
wow.
talked
Yeah.
about them. Olivia Piana has
Oh,
mentioned
yes.
them
Yeah.
multiple times, and I totally respect her. So tell me about them and how big they are. And they seem to be making a lot of different types of boards.
Well, they've got a massive distribution channel with Decathlon as a big chain of outdoor sports things in Europe and in the UK. So they've got an incredible outlet, and I think they make them specifically for Decathlon. And they look pretty good. I actually haven't paddled it yet, but it's so cheap. I just thought, well, let me just try this thing out and see what it's saying, because I also want to interview them as well on SUP FM.
Yeah.
There is this element of everyone saying, oh, but they're these Chinese cheap boards and they're ruining the industry. But
No,
everybody
that's
gets boards made in the same place.
right.
So,
They're
yeah, Fnatic and Iti would have probably sort of have their boards made in the same factory. You never know. I mean, I don't know this, but
no, I know, but there is a lot of that. The same board made, yeah. And then, I mean,
yeah,
some other places, Thailand, Vietnam, have some production, but inflatables, I believe it's China. Yeah. So that is an interesting thing, but we do appreciate those companies that are contributing back to stand-up paddling, even if that's where they have them built. And so that's probably the hard part for me, having worked in the industry. I saw like Rogue Board Company where I bought my first board, companies that have been involved in different aspects of it and again, help support and grow the industry in a number of different ways. But that's the world today. You buy things on Amazon. I just love specialty retail, and I do think it has a special place, whether it's service oriented like yours was. I mean, especially with stand-up paddling, because we look for community. We need advice. We have Costco, I don't think. Do you have that in Europe? Anyway,
no, but we
so
know
they
all
sell
about
a
it.
board. They have everything. And but you get the board, and if you grab that board, even as an impulse buy, you don't know what the safety rules are. You don't know, if it's an inflatable, maybe you can get it home, but otherwise, wait, you need racks on your car. There's just so much more to it, and all the accessories that go with it, and advice that goes with it, and instruction, and
Well, that's the thing. And Simon and I from SUP FM here, we were looking at what's happening in lockdown. Obviously, everyone was shut away for so long, and then this outpouring of yearning for nature afterwards came out, and everyone sort of jumped on a board and went paddling and bought up all the boards in the world, and we couldn't
I
even
know.
find them. But we were looking at this as well, exactly what you're saying. You go into a store and there's a board, and the people buy it and they go out and then they jump on it and they think, okay, well, that's it. But there's, as you say, there's so much more to it. So Simon and I spent a lot of time during lockdown working really hard on developing this stand-up paddle water safety course, because we felt, and I just interviewed the RNLI, which is the United Kingdom's version of the Coast Guard in the US, and they had corroborated this fact that so many more paddleboarding incidents are happening now because so many more new people on who don't really understand conditions. And while we welcome them into the stand-up paddle community, we want to try and help them to understand when to paddle, when not to paddle, what, all the right kit to use. And there's so much there. So we've created this course, and it's like 47 modules long, so it's quite extensive. So we're hoping that people will take that up. And we also want to be speaking to manufacturers to try and get that into the purchase, the point of sale.
Yeah.
So it's a hard thing to do. It's important.
Yeah, very important. I just think it's a brilliant idea, and that's what was mentioned at the beginning, their new project. It's just out. I'm actually taking the course right now, and it's been great because there's so many universal things. I mean, when you do version 2, we'll give you a few little tweaks, only because it's very challenging internationally, like maybe mentioning that there's different laws, because we have very strict policy in the United States Coast Guard. We have been classified as a vessel, therefore we have kayak rules, which include you must carry a PFD or have one on body or on board. Anyway, but such great stuff. And I think it's going to be, it makes so much sense because stand-up paddling boarding is everywhere. It's the most versatile watercraft. It can be done on every water. There isn't always a shop close by where you can get safety information. So this doesn't take the place in a course. If you're somewhere where you can take a class, fantastic. But so many people can't even take an introductory to stand-up paddling, which I think is always a good idea if you are able to do that. But this could be in addition to, or for a lot of people, this is the only thing that they can get. So I just think this is a super valuable. My friend Maggie Adams, who you know, Blue Paddle Sup, and she also has a really big Facebook following. She's taking it right now too. So we've had a little bit of back and forth about it. In fact, she's a really good one. Those of you who want to know more about it in the US, she'll be helping you find it through a link or something. I know she has a website and all. So Blue Paddle Sup, Maggie Adams. But it can be used all over the world. And again, this is exploding again. We're having this surge along with other outdoor activity. We're thrilled people found the water, but I'm more concerned than ever. I mean, people who don't know how to swim get on a stand-up paddleboard. It's the safety aspect is really a huge concern. And we really track stats because we're grouped with kayak, and there are deaths every year off of stand-up paddleboards, and variety of reasons, but often it's people fall off and panic. Well, you need not to panic. And the best way not to panic is to have knowledge, I think. Practice too. Yeah, but knowledge is such an essential piece. So congratulations. And I don't know if you want to, we'll put some follow-up links so people can find you and the Algarve and all different things. But I think this course is super essential. You should interview each other on your Sup FM, you and Simon, about it.
I mean, just, if you need any information, we haven't actually got any information on our website yet, because it's just launching, but supfm.show is the hub for all our stuff. So, and like you were saying, I think it's important. It's great to have an online course because you can take it anywhere, anytime, whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's also vital to go and have a practical training lesson, like at least an hour-long session with some certified stand-up paddleboard instructor. So that's what we mentioned in the course as well. And so I think it's important to get that practical on the water experience as well. But it really does dovetail quite well with the online training. So.
I have gone back.
Sorry,
I was just going to say that I've gone back to Inner Harbor. I think every time I paddle, I'm usually training. I need to nicely tell someone their paddle is backwards because there's so many brand new people, and it really does. You think it needs to scoop when it needs to flare forward.
It's quite difficult to tell people that because when we were paddling across the Algarve, this wonderful couple came out to meet us because they had seen our website and they'd seen our tracker, and we were chatting away, and it was so wonderful. And I said, so how long have you been paddling for? And she's like, 2 years. And I said, have you been holding your paddle like that for 2 years as well? And she's like, oh no, is it the wrong way around? And I said, yeah, it is, but you got to try. It's difficult to say that in a nice way, isn't it? So,
yes. It is challenging. I always start with, hey, you're doing great, and it works the way you have it, but it will work even better if you flip it 180 degrees, so it flares this way. They're like, oh, really?
I was once teaching a Frenchman how to paddle, and he said to me, absolutely not. This is not the right way. I said, but it is the right way. He said, no, it's not. I said, well, that's fine. You know what? Yeah. You go ahead and paddle the wrong way all your life, and you'll go a little bit less fast, but it's okay. It'll still be.
I've had the same. I have had people tell me no, or no, I don't think so, and I just shrug my shoulders and like, up to you. You can make it work in both ways, but that's one of those things about coordinating. I want SUP paddle manufacturers to all put their logo on this side, and some of them
Good
either
idea.
put it on both, or people put stickers sometimes of their own. But this side should be free so that we can tell someone logo forward, facing forward. That kind of simple little thing would make maybe it
Yeah,
easier to
makes a lot
share.
of sense. A lot of sense, yeah. And did you get any consensus in that?
I haven't worked too hard at it. I am still on the board of the SUP Industry Association. For quite a while, I was the executive director, so I did try to get in there on some of those things. But most do that already,
Hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, most paddles have their logo on that front side. So I'm back to the event for a minute, just because. Did you have a number of different? Was like a whole weekend thing, or was it a one day or one race?
Well, it was a kind of like an evolution, really. So the first time was just a single day, paddle all the way down and went back. And then we decided to, because my friend Tom from Algarve Marquis, he's got this marquee company, and he got involved and we started doing it together. He brought all the marquees and he brought
Oh,
lots of stuff.
nice.
Yeah. So then it became a full weekend. And we'd have a dinner on the Friday night, and then people, because I also had this problem where people would go to race, and then bugger off, and they'd leave. And well, hey, hang around. The best part about Stand Up Paddle is talking and chewing the chaff and just what paddle you got, what board you got, etc. Having a few beers and a few whatever you want. And it was,
Hmm.
so we made it into a full weekend thing, yeah. And we actually tried the one day, one year we did a Sunday. It was filled with kids races and fun races with. I don't know if you remember Stand Up Red Paddle actually did a thing with 4 people. A
Oh
board
yeah.
was called a dragon, I think it was. It was
Yep. And they had a whole international competition. Yeah. I actually
yeah.
got to help coordinate one on Lake Tahoe. We had a dragon
Oh,
race that we found enough of them to.
so is that still going?
That is a good question. I don't know. Well, such a strange year. They definitely didn't have any kind of an international competition, but I don't know if they did in 2019. 18 might have
Mm.
been the last. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, so we had a couple of those going, and then we
Mm.
had fun things for the kids as well, and we had speeches as well. Spike Reed came over to talk about all his adventures. We had Andrew Cotton, who is a big wave surfer, because I'm not sure if you know of Nazare, but
Oh, yeah.
biggest wave in the world. Yeah. So
Those
it's this big.
pictures just take my breath away with whatever the building is on the point and the wave behind it.
I like that.
Crazy.
It's
Oh,
nuts. I don't know how those guys. So he said somebody asked him a question when he was giving the speech at our event and said, Andrew, what goes through your mind when you're cruising down a 60-foot face or 70, 80-foot face? And he said, well, there's not much in there to begin with, so not much. I'm just cruising.
sorry. That's a good answer, but funny.
Yeah, I
There's
don't know
not
how
much.
they can do it, but I think obviously a lot of training, a lot of preparation. Because yeah, I don't, when it gets too big, I'm not that happy either. When it gets too big.
Yeah, it's pretty wild to talk to big wave surfers and about, preparation and, oh, yeah. Craziness.
What
Paddle
does
out.
David say?
What's
Oh,
David saying? Cruising.
cruising. Uh,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
have you, I mean, you live in this gorgeous place. Have you traveled a bit and gone to, do you have some other favorite places? You've told us about where some great places to come when we visit Portugal, but have you had a chance to stand up in other?
Yeah, I mean, I paddled a little bit in Greece and Cyprus. Actually paddled in the UK once on the Thames. But I think if you're talking about traveling, the best place that I traveled to, it's still in Portugal, but it's in the center of Portugal. We did a trip, it was 270 kilometers from what's called the Serra da Estrela, which is the Mountains of the Stars. It's a beautiful name.
Yes.
The river there, they're called the Zezere River, and it starts all the way and goes down and it goes into the Tejo River, which ends up in Lisbon. So we started in these mountains, in the foothills of the mountains, paddled down all the way to Lisbon, spending about 9 days. And that to me was the most gorgeous part because central Portugal is real Portugal, and nobody really speaks English. They have this little village. So, in order for us to resupply, we wanted to go into villages and buy bread and things. So we went into a village. and there was nobody there. There was just a little dog. And he was sort of yapping around. Then eventually we found one old one-toothed man and said to him, hey, where's the cafe? And where's the shop? He says, no, there's no shop here. And immediately strange enough, at the same time, this big white van draws up, opens its doors, and voila, there's a shop. And this van obviously goes from place to place to place, with like bread and cheese and meat and everything. Incredible.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so that kind of stuff still happens, and these people are so isolated because there's not many roads there. I mean, that's the thing is with a river, it used to be a massive means of communication and massive means of transport, but nowadays it's no one uses rivers; they just use roads. So the roads don't always go into these little riverside villages.
Well, I love the idea of going back to using the river as transportation, and those multi-day events, really cool. So we're gonna, yep.
Sorry, just if you ask me about travel, there's one place that I'd really like to paddle. There's a place on the west coast of Italy called Portofino. I don't know if you've been there, but it's in the Cinque Terre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And from Portofino, there's a 5-kilometer paddle around to a little place called San Fruttuoso. And I saw this I've never been there, but I just love to go there because they've got this incredible pesto pasta. I just thought that's got to be the place because no roads go there. You can only really get there by sea or like a really long overland hike.
Yeah.
So it just sounds like a perfect place to paddle.
I have been to that amazing area and through those places, but it was before paddling. I love the idea of doing it via water instead of the trails. And I think we took a ferry out around that point where Portofino is. And there's this amazing little, it's probably, I don't remember the name, but just little alcove that had a little hotel restaurant in it. It's kind of at the end. Is that it?
It's gotta be it. Yeah.
Well, it was amazing, and we couldn't figure out if we wanted to get off, but we didn't know when the next we hadn't done any kind of research and thought, well, we don't have a room here, so I don't know if we're going to be able to stay. And like you said, it looked like that was the only access, so we didn't stay very long. But okay, paddling back there. There's another good spot. Okay. Great one. We have to list these things. We have to remember to do that in that. You play a lot of different roles, but maybe let's say as a SUP guide and expeditioner, tell us a little bit about, we'll get some top 3, maybe some tips about either mistakes to avoid or things to do to get into. I mean, doing trips, maybe not necessarily guiding, going on expeditions. As a SUP expeditioner, we'll call you that. And then kind of equipment, you mentioned you use you like hardboards yourself, but you use stand-up, inflatable stand-ups a lot when you were in business. So maybe a little bit of advice, tips and equipment and what to do and not to do as an expeditioner.
Okay, so SUP expeditions, you got to plan a lot. I think you got to know exactly where you're going, what's happening with the tides and the conditions and the winds and what could go wrong, because what will go wrong, what can go wrong will go wrong. Surprisingly, the last trip we had, nothing went wrong, which is bizarre. We've had issues. Stuff will break. Always take backups, like even a backup fin or a backup paddle. And one little tip that I love to have, and a lot of sort of hardcore expeditioners will say, go as lightweight as possible. But to be honest, I'm quite a big guy. I don't mind paddling a little bit more, as long as I have my luxury. And I always take a blow-up mattress because I like to sleep properly. And also a ground sheet. So you can basically, because a lot of these waterproof bags don't have zips on them. You just got the neck. So you pour everything out onto the sand, and then all your stuff's getting sandy or dirty or whatever. But get a ground sheet, stick it all on. It just makes it a whole lot easier. But I think the best tip for expeditions is just generally try and figure out how long it's going to take you to do a daily trip. And you can't really plan these things. So if you've got somebody following you with a support truck, you've got to have communication with them, because you can't say, look, I'm going to be there. I'm going to start at point A and be at point B by X time. You'll never get there. And you don't want to put that kind of pressure on yourself. I think, to me, an expedition is not a trial of absolute pain. It's a fun holiday, because it's the best holiday I've ever had to. And, people think, oh, wow. A lot of people I speak to here, and they'll go and they say, oh, God, how can you paddle 160 kilometers? And I'm like, well, pretty easily. You just carry on doing it. It's just hour after hour. And sure, the conditions, you have to be very aware of the conditions because it, can turn in a heartbeat. And I think once you've got that basic preparation down, you're good to go.
Great advice. Yeah. So, do you want to, paddle logger we mentioned, and I know David's on. For me, I haven't always taken my phone. So but I'm really attempting to now. And I love his safety backup and the way that the tracking part is super fun, but the fact that you can, if you ever do go out on your own, what a great idea that you could notify someone, I'm on the water now and I should be back in, and you choose 4 hours or whatever it is. If I'm not,
That's a brilliant feature that they've got on Paddle Logger, and kudos to him because they call it a digital flare, which is a lovely terminology. So if you're in trouble, just press a button and it goes it sends an automatic pure down message to your emergency contact. And you don't have to fiddle around. It's a nice big button and it's so easy to push. Because obviously when you're out there and you're in a situation, you might be cold, your hands are wet, and it's difficult to fiddle with your phone. So it's really well thought out. And I think Paddle Logger is doing a great service to all of us by having a dedicated, because I used to use Strava a lot, and Strava basically is running and riding and bicycling. They don't really focus on all the little nitty gritty things that we need as paddlers. Like for example, when I'm paddling, I put my phone in my pack, and I can still hear it. But what is amazing about Paddle Logger is when you've hit 5Ks, you know when you've hit 10K. And it says, hey, you've hit 5Ks or 10K. So those things are great. And I think as a piece of safety equipment, your phone is vital. It's something that you should always take with. I think a lot of us don't do it sometimes because we're just not used to doing it. But it's a very important thing to carry with you.
Yeah. So on your first expedition, did you make any? You said there usually are mistakes. I mean, there's lots of things out of our control, like the weather, but you want to plan it as well as you can. Things change sometimes. Do you remember anything? Any mistakes made that maybe advice?
Big time, yeah. So one night we were paddling, and there were tons of jellyfish all over the place, but there were some nice little waves. So we were going to camp there that night. We had a couple of hours left of daylight, so we thought instead of pushing on a little bit, we're going to camp here, because if we'd pushed on 2 hours, we would have got to an inland lake, and it's like a coastal lagoon which we would paddle in that goes 70 kilometers across the Algarve. So we thought, oh no, let's hang on, let's play around with these jellyfish and the surf. So we put all our kit on the beach, and we started surfing. We're having so much fun. It was wonderful. We had a nice night. The next morning we woke up, howling onshore wind. The swell had come up, so it wasn't too big. It was about 4 foot. But the problem is when you got an expedition board and you've got straps over it, it's not exactly hydrodynamic. And so we were trying to get out through the swell, and I was saying to Spike, it's fine, we'll make it, no problem. It's all cool. But it wasn't cool. And we were trying and the waves, even though they were that small, they were ripping our bags off, ripping the D-rings off our boards, breaking straps. So eventually we just couldn't carry on. So we actually had to walk 5.5 kilometers with all our packs, full on packs, these heavy boards. I mean, 5 years ago, the boards were a lot heavier than they are now. So we really struggled, and that was a big mistake. So, yeah, and also you've got to be careful of the other trip I did up in the Zezere River, is that there's often, obviously on rivers, there's lots of dams, and especially in Portugal, there's tons of dams. And the dam is quite interesting because, it's like sometimes 300 meters up. And so when you get down to the bottom, and all our dams have hydroelectric systems, that's why they've been made. And at the bottom, they have heavily sort of fenced off areas and protected because of the hydroelectric power coming out, or the water coming out. You're not allowed to launch there. You have to go and find your own launch point, and it could be another few kilometers down the river. So that was one really challenging part when we did that. And we got down to the river eventually, and we realized that the river was actually the sides of the river was a deep gorge, and we couldn't get in. It was really difficult. So we had to throw everything off the bridge. And also another interesting thing about dams is the surface water of a river is generally pretty warm, or a lake. So behind the dam at the top, there's a lake, right? And it's warm on the top. Now all that water is coming from underneath that lake. It was about 10 or 12 degrees. It was really cold in centigrade. So that was a bit of a shock. We jumped in and thought, it'll be as warm as the top was.
Yeah, we just did a little self-supported trip. I don't know if you call it an expedition, but 3 nights in camping, but we had all our own stuff and on inflatables, 10 women, but it was right below a dam. And both that I've done have been right below a dam because that's usually a nice area. But you are so right about it was really hot out, but the water was quite chilly because it pulls
Yeah,
from the bottom, which was something
that must be
I hadn't
fun, man.
really realized. Yeah, very
Yeah,
fun
I think
on the
what you guys did.
Colorado River.
I was wondering, I was in the Colorado. Was it in the,
There's
was
so
it what?
many Colorado's huge, so there's lots of sections. There's the very whitewater Grand Canyon has, the
Yeah,
kind that you raft and goes up to high levels of this was definitely a mellow section, but the morning was absolutely still like a lake, and then they release water more and more through the day. So we had to actually help some people who couldn't get back to their campsite because they were out at 6 p.m. Again, having knowledge of all of that, where the put-in spots are, paying attention to the weather, often Mother Nature or human, when they have to do with dams and stuff. But I don't think they had realized they were going to release so much water, and they couldn't get back upstream because it was ripping.
sure, yeah. I mean, that's a big thing as well. Can you communicate with the people who release the water? They know, they're telling you exactly how and when they release the water, right?
I've heard there's different apps for that on different dams, but I haven't learned that much. I was co-guiding and counting on the gal who's done it multiple times to give us those. But good information to have and learn, and you need somebody with you but sometimes when you're the first one doing something, like you have done on some of your expeditions, you have to go through those mistakes to learn. But maybe you need to make a map of the Portugal waterways showing the put-ins. Although
Yeah,
kayak, there might be something because kayak is so big there. The
yeah. Exactly. I think there's an app called Go Paddle. I think it's that app, and that does do a lot of that. I haven't used it myself, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
But
what
that's
would you
another.
say? Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
you go ahead. I was just saying another thing to be safe on rivers, obviously, is dams, and we've got one of the biggest dams in Europe here in Portugal called the Alceva Dam, and
Mm.
that affects our river, the Guadiana, where we did that event on. So that also obviously affects the level. So yeah, something to be aware of.
Yeah. For instance, where we camped, we had to make sure because the water level changes because when they release, that you can go to sleep and the water could creep up and take your crafts away or hit you. We
Yeah,
usually we sleep on the inflatables. They do make good, but I still bring the mat. I also bring a blow up mattress pad because got to be able
yeah,
to
I
sleep to be able to paddle
don't.
the next day.
Yeah.
So So would you say, I mean, you have to have learned so much in the last 6, 7 years and so many businesses and so many different adventures. Is there something you know now that you would tell yourself when you first started in 2014? And again, it sounds like you jumped in with both feet. You learned how to do it. You became an instructor. You started a business all the same year.
Well, yeah, I probably wouldn't do it differently because I think I did it. I think I did it the right way. But I would really urge people to, when they're starting to paddle, definitely go and do a stand-up paddle certification. Not a certification. Just go and do a course with another certified guide before you go in, and try and find out as much as you can about the local conditions, and be careful. So many people are so unaware of the ocean. I remember
Yeah.
sharing a video the other day where there's this girl and they're like Instagramming and fluffy, and then she gets wiped out by a wave. And I remember speaking to so many people on the shoreline, in the impact zone, and it's not big waves. I mean, they're small waves, right? People are just totally unaware of waves, and they don't realize that they're there. You just have to be aware. I think being aware is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Um,
I admire and I'm so enthralled and a love for Mother Nature, but it also she needs to be appreciated and respected. And I think people who don't know water don't get that when they come to the ocean. We live on a coastal town and we have drownings every year, and it's often they're just standing and they get hit by shore break and get taken away and panic. Or fall.
yeah.
We have some rock outcroppings, just exactly what you said. Probably that I could see that being in our town. Instagram pose, and then a wave hits you and you get knocked off. And we have helicopter
I think
rescues all the time.
yeah, that's just a case of awareness, isn't it? How water works. And we did a podcast about books the other day. It was a book club thing, and
Yes,
there's an amazing book that I read called what is it called? It's by
it's.
Tristan Goodman.
I know it's on my nightstand.
How to read
How to
water.
read water. Yeah,
Yeah, and
just
that is
starting
just
it.
it's redefined the way I jump in my pool every morning to go for a swim, and it's just the way the water feels around your body and the way you see it move. It's really redefined my relationship with water as a way, and it's just it's such an exciting, different way of looking at something that I've seen for the last 50 years of my life. It's bizarre. So I thank Tristan Goody for writing that book. It's brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that you're part of your podcast with the books and everything. I need to suggest some more.
Yeah.
I think that's great because it's a great resource. Well, you need to repeat about your safety course because somebody just asked, do you have a recommendation for an online safety course? Yes, we
Sure
do.
do.
Nick and Simon just made one and it just came out.
Yeah,
And we
so you
are
can
going to,
go. I'll put some more information on supfm.show, but it's actually on supfm.thinkific.com. That's how you can get there directly. So yeah,
and these links will be in our Facebook group, SupConnect Live discussions. We'll make sure to have those. Yeah. Oh, good. David's putting up the link for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's
And Terry Carlin, she's a shop owner in Arizona, is giving you a thumbs up. Great
oh,
gal.
cool.
They have all
I'm
kinds of
dying to interview somebody in Arizona, so yeah, it'd be great.
lots of cool places in Arizona to paddle too. There is water, right, Terry? And lots of it. Yeah. Well,
Sounds
thank
like
you, Nick, so much. I want to finish up before they cut us off because Instagram does not give you more than an hour. I don't know if you've ever run into that. I know you have the professional podcast thing.
yeah, but I've never done this before. This is really cool. So you're way ahead.
I don't know about that. I just jumped right into it. So just again, thanks for talking to us. Excited about your new endeavors, and you still are doing podcasts, so you follow them there. It's cool, all this great content that's been done during the COVID thing. That's kind of how SupConnect decided to do this, and I got lucky enough to get to be the host, and it's been wonderful connecting with so many people.
Well, yeah, thank you so much, Kristen, for the opportunity because it really is an honor to be on SupConnect. I've followed you guys for years, and I think SupConnect's doing amazing work. It's wonderful to see you and Ali and everybody doing so well. So thanks very much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Great talking with you, and someday I'll see you paddling, maybe in Portugal.
See you on the water.
See you on the water. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.